We're back, and we're going to hit you with a switch up. We're not going to hit you with the Lawford fight first. We're going to talk about a fight that's a little bit more interesting, and that of Muhammad Mokaev versus Manel Kaev. Very, very, very big price discrepancy here. And as you are walking into this, you're probably wondering, what the hell has just been shoved in my face? Well, welcome to Prediction Strike, stock market for sports. If you're not familiar, fortunately, you have Jackson and Grant here to cook away and tell you exactly how you should be managing your portfolio throughout this card here. And the first fight that we're going to talk about here is Manel Kaev versus Muhammad Mokaev. So Jackson and Grant, walk us through this here.
What was that Mokaev's price quickly?
$11.
Yeah.
Like really big price discrepancy here.
It's certainly a closer fight than that, obviously. I feel like on PS, Cop is kind of a must invest. In terms of just how I see this fight going out, it's kind of been a weird, almost a year now for Manel Kaev. I feel like he's been supposed to fight like 4 times, and he's had trouble missing weight, and he's had opponents get injured, and just kind of a lot of things. But I guess you could look at that in the way where he's kind of been prepared to fight for a long time. So this camp probably was a bit of an easier one because he's been in shape and fighting shape for a minute now. His last fight coming as a win in early September of 2023. I do think Mokaev is probably the better fighter here, but on PS, it feels like a must. Obviously, you've seen a little bit of a jump for Muhammad because he's only 23 and he's coming off of, I believe, 6 straight wins in the UFC. He's undefeated so far, and obviously a great promising prospect. I would say if you're looking at this on a sports book, it's tough to really make a lean here, but on PS, Cop is as good of an investment as you can find, just straight value wise.
Yeah, I would agree. And this is this kind of a weird dynamic entering this fight because we're seeing a Muhammad Mokaev that's coming off a win over Alex Perez, where he supposedly had a staph infection. He looked really bad in that fight. He went 3 of 20 on takedowns. He ended up squeezing out the win, but like we saw more striking than we normally do from him in that fight. And I think a lot of MMA fans realized, wow, Muhammad Mokaev is really, really bad at striking. So, I mean, like what we saw then, it could have been because of the staph infection, or, like maybe he's just really bad at striking. I personally think it's probably 50-50. He might have gassed a little bit more in his last fight because of the staph infection. He's probably made improvements since then. I do think Mokaev wins this one. I personally am not going. I'm going to zoom out for a fighter like Mokaev here. But obviously, like if you're just arbitraging from other markets, Cop is one of the best plays on PredictionStrike this week.
Yeah, I think this is a fight too where you'll know very quickly within the first round or even the first 3 minutes of the first round who's going to win this fight, because the style will absolutely determine this one. If it's standing, Mokaev is obviously a far worse striker. So if that's a style of this fight, I don't see it ending well for him. But if you see him have more success with those takedowns, obviously he shot 20 last fight, but if he has a higher success rate in this one, I don't see Cop being able to handle him on the ground. So stylistically, it should be pretty clear quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, it's pretty much a matter of will Manel Cop be able to defend those takedowns? Like,
yeah.
I mean, everyone knows Mokaev's going to be shooting at the legs the entire fight. So, like, will he be able to defend that? We've seen Manel get taken down in the past. He's obviously, like, eons ahead of Muhammad in the striking department. I think it's all about how hesitant he's going to be with his striking because, like, defending those takedowns from Mokaev, if Mokaev is fully on top of his game, or maybe even Cop's striking makes Mokaev a little bit more timid in shooting takedowns through the fight. And so, yeah, I totally agree. I think we're going to know what's up pretty early in this fight.
Yeah, agreed.
Right on. So what's the prediction we should be looking for? It sounds like submission is what I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. So I guess if that's a take you have, then you probably stay away from this one on PS. But I do think Cop is more than capable of taking this one within the distance, which would obviously be a huge boost on PS given his price discrepancy. So if you like the Cop value, take it on PS and not a sports book because you're going to get much better price there.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
I would say
Thanks.
my lean is Makayev, either by sub or decision.
Ooh.
Love the value on PS for Cop, though.
All right, sounds good. Moving on to the next bout, we have Jake Hadley versus Kylan Laughlin. What do we got there? What are we looking price wise? What are we expecting for this fight?
So I just wanted to flag this one because it's a clear arbitrage opportunity. Kylan Laughlin is a pretty big favorite over Jake Hadley right now, is the cheaper fighter by nearly $1. We've got Kylan at $2.67 and Jake Hadley at $3.40. Kylan, he is a kind of wide striker, has a wide base when he's fighting, has some power, uses that wide base I was talking about to throw kicks. Solid takedown defense, nice offensive takedowns. Generally, though, busy striker, good footwork. Good at moving forward, can be kind of hittable because of that stance that I was mentioning. He's good at switching over to wrestling if he is getting touched up. And while he's a decent wrestler, definitely apt, he doesn't have much BJJ on the ground. He kind of just squirms around. Coming off a decision win over Angel Pacheco, going up against Jake Hadley, who is moving up in weight by 10 pounds. He's a striker as well, good BJJ, solid boxing, good timing on his feet, aggressive BJJ on the ground, definitely much better in that department than is Kylan. Hadley also has really good cardio. He's coming off a loss to Charles Johnson, where he looked good in the moments that he was moving forward. Like I said, he's moving up in weight. I do think Hadley's the better fighter in general, but I do think in this particular matchup, the weight is going to make a big difference. He's giving up 10 pounds. Kylan has no problem being insanely boring in a fight and using his size to just mash you against the cage the whole fight, get control. If Jake can keep range and be the one moving forward, I think he can win. He's a bit faster. He's more technical. But if he backs up at all, I think Kylan will just take over with his size and forward pressure. So could be a sneaky close fight, but I like Kylan to win here. I think we're getting the best price of any market on PredictionStrike.
Right on. So we looking decision? How are we finishing this one out?
Yeah, I'm thinking Kylan decision.
All right. Nice and easy. On to Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. What do we think about this fight? 316 versus 328, even prices. Let's see what the other markets have.
I think Nat Wood's the biggest favor on the card.
Yeah, this one has a projected 1.5 rounds is what it's expecting. So a little bit more of a banger potentially for this one, considering the majority of fights are projected for 2.5 rounds. This one they're projecting for 1.5.
Yeah, I think that 1.5 totally makes sense. Daniel Pineda historically is basically a kill or be killed kind of guy, and I think this is pretty much setting him up for a be killed situation here. Wood is a really good striker, very powerful. He can grapple as well. He has takedowns in 9 of his UFC fights, subs in 3 of them. So he's a well-rounded guy. Good takedowns, good control when he's on the ground. High striking output, 6 significant strikes per minute. And he has 70% takedown defense to back all that up. He's coming off a win over Muhammad Naimov, or actually it might not have been a win, but it would have been a win, I think, without the fouls that were going on in that fight. But Pineda, he's had 43 fights. Like I said, kill or be killed. He has a single decision in all 43 of those fights. He's a good wrestler, solid grappling, comes out insanely hot, is dangerous for about the first half of the first round, and then pretty much fades into nothing. He has powerful hands, though. Aggressive grappling is pretty much how to describe him. He's coming off a loss to Alex Caceres. Couldn't hang in the striking, basically, but takedowns look pretty good. I think if Nathaniel Wood isn't finished by Pineda in the first two minutes of this fight, he wins, and probably by finish here. He's insanely tough. He's a little bit small, but I think he's going to be better everywhere. All he has to do really is weather a first round storm. So Nathaniel Wood by finish here. I think it could go either sub or KO, honestly.
Yeah, it's a great value on PS as well.
Yeah, totally.
Undeniable value there.
Yeah, good spot for that one right on. Move on to the next fight. Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. What are we expecting out of this fight? And let's see what the other markets say.
I expect a pretty comfortable Arnold Allen cruise here, in my opinion. Obviously built up a pretty impressive win streak to start his career in the UFC, and then he come up against two pretty impressive opponents in Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev, who didn't look great against, losing by unanimous decision in both of those fights. To me, Giga is closer to the caliber of the opponents that he's taken care of in the past pretty comfortably. He didn't really have too many scares throughout that win streak that he put together at the beginning of his career in the UFC. And this feels like a situation where Giga doesn't really apply a ton of pressure on the ground, isn't going to shoot too many takedowns. Maybe he'll try to do that because that's been where Arnold Allen has had trouble in the past. That Evloev fight was taking place a lot on the ground, and he was kind of just getting outpointed by control. Giga doesn't really pose that type of threat, in my opinion, and this feels like a fight where Arnold Allen gets back in the win column.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think in a lot of markets we're getting a good price here for Allen just because he's on a 2-fight skid. But like you said, Grant, like it was Max Holloway, it was Movsar Evloev, some really high quality opponents. Also, I think in that Evloev fight, there were some controversial knees there that probably could have changed the outcome of the fight. And honestly, I think Giga looked worse in his last win than Arnold Allen looked in his last loss.
Yeah.
He fought Alex Caceres, didn't get going until the second round. Wasn't landing any combos, was super low output. So I honestly think Arnold looked better in his loss than Giga did in his win in their last fight. So I'm not worried about that skid at all. I think he's the better fighter. I think he controls the striking against Giga Man. He's the pick for sure. I expect it to go to decision as well, probably.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
I think if it's gonna get finished, it's probably on his side as well too.
Yeah.
So you could get a little boost there, but I think it should be pretty comfortable.
For sure.
Well, that fight doesn't sound like the most entertaining. I'm not going to lie, but I'm sure from a technical standpoint, it'll be very stimulating. Anyways, on to something else that doesn't look like it'll last long. Gregory Rodriguez versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Now, if I remember correctly, I want to say CLD is actually pretty entertaining of like a prospect to a degree.
Both of these guys are exciting fighters for sure.
And the lines look pretty intriguing as well, with an over-under for 1.5 rounds at -140. Looks like it might be a pretty impactful fight just off.
Oh, actually, I like that a lot. But yeah, I like that we're getting these fighters or these fights on here with like basically pick 'em odds. Makes for fun investments on PredictionStrike, especially when it's two guys with a high finish rate like CLD and Greg Rodriguez. Christian, very high pressure fighter. He has 9 finishes and 10 wins. Very powerful, comes forward, generally just a big guy. And he could definitely switch things up into wrestling if he is getting touched a little bit. He's definitely wild, can be sloppy because of it, but generally dangerous on the feet, solid ground and pound when he gets on top of you. His most recent fight was a ground and pound win over Claudio Ribeiro. Gregory is more well-rounded, I would say, than CLD. Striking power, BJJ black belt. He has really good takedown defense, likes to keep fights standing with that takedown defense, even though he does have that BJJ. He prefers to a firefight pretty much. Big, powerful, similar to CLD. Definitely a threat everywhere. He's coming off a knockout win over Brad Tavares, whose fight got canceled on the previous card. And I think Leroy Duncan, more technical striker of the two, probably by a lot. I think Gregory Rodriguez might have be a little bit. I mean, they're both knockout threats. I'm not even going to say Gregory's more dangerous, but Gregory has proven to be insanely durable. CLD is really good. Sometimes he gets sloppy, especially after he has some early success, like showboating type stuff. But I'm still picking him. I think striking is sharper. He's got that hometown UK advantage. But I mean, this one's obviously a little bit of a landmine because of how dangerous Gregory Rodriguez is. He could come out, land big, and just get it done as well. So CLD is my lean.
So I have a quick question here. I was reading through. It's like some people really study head movement when they're looking at like potential KO finishes. Do you have a particular lean when you look at these guys? That it's like, okay, you actually see this guy's moving his head, or maybe his is more still or not. Is there any of that you're looking for?
I don't know the stats off top of how many strikes these guys absorb, but I do think CLD is probably who you can expect to have better head movement. He's like a much more technical striker. His stand-up defense, I would be like, without looking at the stats, I'm 75% sure it's better than Gregory Rodriguez is. So, I mean, like head movement basically just stops you from eating shots while you're throwing them, and it's like I think CLD is probably superior.
Right on. All right. Grant, you got anything to cook on this, or are we moving to the next?
No, CLD is my lean as well. I feel like it's more or less a 50-50, and you get a dude from Western England who's won his last fight, and I think there was an injury, but he was pretty dominant in that as well. It was on that Usman card that was in London. But you get him back in England, little home court advantage. You see that a lot with a lot of these Brazilians, and this feels like a chance where you can get some value here. So I'm definitely on the same side as Jackson.
All right. Well, with that said, we move on to our next bout. King Green, which is a very fun name, versus Paddy the Batty.
The name change was so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah. King Green, man. What do you guys think of this? Paddy is the much higher price guy here, so I will say the technical play on PredictionStrike is probably going to be going towards King Green, like a green bean. But yeah, Paddy Bablet, I can't even say the kid's right. Walk me through how this fight's going to go.
Paddy the Batty.
I'll see what the markets are saying here. They're expecting this to go further, but it seems more 50-50 on it. Could be a shorter fight as well. What do we see here,
Sir Grant?
Yeah, on PS, I feel like it's a must to lean with Bobby Green here. It's honestly a crazy fight. I mean, I guess it's been building up for a while, but you have a guy with all the experience in the world who's at the tail end of his career versus a dude that seems to fluctuate in weight about as crazily as any person I've ever seen.
He is looking cut up.
Insane.
Yeah, he does. He looks crazy. Obviously hasn't lost yet in his career, and he's kind of a guy where a lot of that hype built, and he was a dude you could market. But like his last fight, or his last two fights, really, it's kind of been questionable whether he was really the best fighter in the ring. And I guess you could get a little bit of home cooking here again, and you could see a decision that's similar to that. But as far as just a read on the fight, I feel like Bobby Green probably has the advantage. He is a slight consensus favorite, and you get that little boost on PS. So I'm going to take a dude with the experience who's been in these situations, seen every kind of fight. And I do think he gets this one done, but we might see some funny business if this gets to a close decision. So beware of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is another great spot just to not think too hard about a fight and play off of the prices. It's hard to get a read on this one, honestly, because it's like, do we really know where either of these guys are at in their career? Like, Bobby just got Jim Miller, who's old and slow. Paddy the Batty also beat up an old dude and was also given some interesting decisions, like Grant said. So I think it's going to be a good test for Paddy Pimblett, like just good for us to see where he's actually at in his career. I think obviously if it gets to the ground, it's going to be a pretty sticky situation for King Green. I do trust his takedown defense. I relatively trust his takedown defense. Also, if this goes to decision, could be a little bit sketch for King Green just because it is in England. Paddy the Batty is, poster child from over there. But yeah, basically, I think King Green wins in a striking match here. If he can keep it standing up, shouldn't be too difficult. I'm leaning King Green slightly.
King Green like a green. All right. Well, with that said, we move on to the next fighter with interesting dialogue, Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades. It's
My
pretty
sweet
easy.
Prince, Tom
Aspinall.
just don't sit him in a one-on-one interview with a woman reporter. But other than
that's just like one of the worst ideas before time.
It's
trying my
maybe the
best, man,
cringiest
but,
clip
like,
I've ever seen.
It's crazy. It's one of the most insane clips of all time. But yeah, but
But
that's it.
you get this dude in the ring. I just don't see Curtis Blades having the technical ability to compete with Tom Aspinall. I mean, he's about as polished of a prospect, especially in the heavyweight division, that we've probably ever seen, especially in recent times. I mean, just a mountain of a dude. Also with just great technical ability, super flexible with his kicks. He can kind of find angles that most heavyweights struggle to find. Also a great revenge spot here. We saw Tom, I believe, as the co-main of a main numbered card in England a few years ago. Obviously, had that traumatic leg injury in the fight against Curtis Blades. I think he comes out looking for revenge here. I would have been a little worried if it was his first fight back. I feel like that's just kind of a lot of emotions, but he's kind of gotten the rust off. Took that interim championship belt, and I mean, I think he has a chance against anyone in this division, John Jones included. I think that would be a great fight. I think he cruises here, and it's kind of a nice story for him to come back in his home country and be on the victorious side of this one against Curtis Blades.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom Aspinall, honestly, it could just be a murder here. Like, I wish Curtis Blades still wrestled so badly, because that was like his main thing back in the day, was wrestling. I don't think he's attempted a takedown in multiple years now. So it's a striker versus who is potentially like the most well-rounded heavyweight fighter we've ever seen. Really solid striking, BJJ black belt, mixes and kicks as well. Like, he is so athletic and dynamic for a heavyweight. We saw Curtis Blades get the win over Jailton Almeida, but you can't let it go unnoticed that he got taken down 9 times, was basically getting destroyed, and then Jailton kind of just froze up for some reason and got beat in the side of the head. I don't think Blades won that fight, aside from like that weird moment from Jailton at all. He was getting absolutely mauled. I think Tom Aspinall is probably going to do the same, look towards his ground game more often than not here against Blades, and just kind of throw him around.
Completely agree. The wrestling would have been interesting, I think, if he could have worked that a little more here and just held control. He could potentially fight towards a decision, but even then, like, Aspinall is pretty much a hybrid. Like he's very comfortable on the ground, working his way out of situations and kind of defending off takedowns. So I still think, even if that was part of his game, this is a fight that Tom is a big favorite in, obviously. And but with that leaving his game, it's even more of a blowout in my eyes. Yeah,
I'm willing to bank he doesn't shoot. Like, I'd be fine with losing my money on this fight if Curtis Blades went in there and started wrestling. I would just be shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's projected not to leave the first round, based off.
Really?
Wow.
Makes sense.
Books. And it is for Tom Aspinall to get a knockout in the first round. It is plus 110.
Wow.
So, pretty good looks for big man Aspinall. Now we have Leon Edwards here versus Bilal Muhammad, and Jackson has a very good take here.
Hot take. Bilal wins this one. We have him priced at 1683, Leon at 2176. So, I mean, it's not like the best value, because he's a 2-to-1 dog on most sites right now. Still great value though, if you truly do believe in Bilal. And this is another rematch like the Aspinall fight. There was an eye poke in the first fight. Leon, very well-rounded striker, good body kick, solid wrestling, well-rounded guy. Averages like 1 takedown a fight, I think. He has takedowns against guys like Colby Covington, who I will admit didn't really look like Colby Covington when they fought, but like Kamaru Usman, Nate Diaz. He's good everywhere, really good cardio, good fight IQ. He defended 8 of Colby Covington's takedowns and got 2 of his own in their fight, which I thought was interesting. But again, it really didn't look like vintage Colby there. Bilal is, as we know, basically a nonstop wrestler, averages 2 takedowns per fight, which is kind of that sweet spot for elite wrestlers, knows That's how you know their control time is pretty deadly. Solid fight IQ, switches things up well, and has apparently improved upon his striking since we've seen him fight last by a lot, or at least that's what his coaches say. Say it's akin to like Canelo. He did win his last 2 fights with striking. Won a decision over Gilbert Burns. Didn't even attempt a takedown in that fight. It was literally just striking. So I do think his striking is getting better. I think they really are focusing on it. So I'm really excited to see that. Interesting fight for sure. Leon was definitely winning that first fight before the no contest, but like that was 3 years ago. So I'm gonna scratch it. Both of these guys are different fighters. Bilal literally just outstruck Burns without shooting a single takedown. Defended all of his takedowns, etc. And we don't really know what Leon will look like against a real nonstop wrestler. Like, I don't think we saw enough there with Bilal. And we will also see Bilal get tested striking at a high level. I slightly lean Bilal. Bro has been up in the mountains training with the Khabibs of the world. I think he could just go out there and maul Leon. I think he's smart enough not to try to strike with him too much. I think he actually, even though I've been praising his striking, I do think he's still going to like wrestle as much as he possibly can. Leon barely beat Usman. Colby, I'm discounting that fight because Colby wasn't Colby. I think I'm leaning Bilal. Love the value pretty much everywhere.
Brentwood?
Yeah. My lean is with Leon. I feel like the fight IQ that you touched on is going to be very important here. I feel like he's going to be able to kind of weasel his way out of scenarios and avoid a lot of that control that Bilal is going to need in order to take home a decision here. I think if Leon can avoid those like 2-minute stretches to end rounds and stuff where it's just a lot of like top control and not a ton going on, where you'll see Bilal get some point credit for that. If Leon can kind of maneuver his way out of those situations and keep this fight mostly standing, obviously he's probably going to get taken down in this one at some point, but I trust his ability to figure his way out of that one. He's done it against Usman. He's done it against Colby. 2 guys who are obviously very experienced wrestlers. I think Bilal is a different caliber, but he's shown an ability to improve in that area. And I think knowing that this was his next fight, that's probably been a huge focus for him as well. Like you said, Bilal has been working on the striking. I'm sure it's quite the opposite for Leon, where Leon's comfortable in those scenarios and is working on kind of figuring out ways to tackle any sort of problem he may face on the ground. I've doubted Leon in his last 3 fights. And he's kind of passed them mostly with flying colors, especially that Colby Covington fight. Obviously had a crazy finish to one of the Usman fights, but I thought that decision in the second one wasn't as close as it ended up being. I thought Leon looked pretty dominant in that fight throughout most of it. I think it was a majority decision. It felt to me more like it should have been unanimous, but I'm going to have to back Leon here. I'm sick of losing to him, so I think I need to trust him here. Although I do think the value is not ideal. I think this fight's a little closer than they're making it seem, but I give it an edge to Leon in this one for sure.
I also will preface my Bilal take with, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Grant, where I've been wrong about Leon a couple times in his last few fights. So I'll preface fading him again with that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Yeah, that's about it. If you liked it, subscribe. Make sure to invest in your favorite fighters on PredictionStrike. That's the best way to utilize this information, in my opinion. Or if you want to use it in other markets, entirely up to you. But until next time, y'all, peace, best of luck, enjoy the weekend, and make sure you're tuning in for other content as well. Peace, y'all.
Peace out.